Again, welcome to today's webinar. We are excited to have Emily Heiss join us from the Texas Education Agency. She is going to be providing us some updates and some important information in terms of educational support for our children who are deaf and hard of hearing. My name is Michaela Hamaker, and I am the project manager for Texas Hands and Voices, and I'm also a mom to two deaf hard of hearing kids myself. We are also joined today by our Guide by Your Side coordinator, Teresa Dang. So thank you so much for joining us. Emily has been an ally of Texas Hands and Voices for very many years, and we appreciate her support greatly in terms of providing our community with her knowledge and passing that along to all of us. So Emily, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself. And when you're ready, please let me know and I will share the screen and show your PowerPoint.
Okay, sounds great. Perfect. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Emily Heiss. I'm the program manager for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing at TEA for now, I guess it's been about 7 years now. Wow. I have been presenting for Texas Hands and Voices for several years, and I always enjoy my time. I enjoy this webinar. For one thing, it gives me an opportunity to connect with you, with parents, with educators, families, etc. It is really it's something that is so important to me. I did request before this meeting some topics that I was requested to bring some topics that you were interested in that would be very aligned with your work and the concerns that you have and information that you needed to know. So I developed a PowerPoint with your topics in mind, and I did add a few things that we will be having updates. We'll be having TEA updates. Some updates that have come up relating to the deaf and hard of hearing communities and general information, and those have all come up in the last year or so. Okay, so I think I am ready to go ahead. If you would please share that PowerPoint. Okay, great. I need to fix the view on my end. Give me just one moment. I had it ready to go. My mouse isn't working. Okay, great. Go to the next slide, please. So here's today's agenda. We'll hit these topics. The first one are resources we have developed that I would like to share some information with you about. Next up, we have eligibility requirements relating to autological examinations. We have the Texas Deaf Children's Bill of Rights. There's no new information there, but I just wanted to expand the Bill of Rights and what that means for us. Fourth up, we'll talk about services for deaf and hard of hearing students. And we just got an update last year relating to the STAR Alt 2 testing and those requirements. Next slide, please. Okay. All right, so let's discuss some resources. You know that with special ed, special education is available to all students because of IDEA, and parents and families can be involved with those services and rights as well. If they would like to have special education services for their children, here's some information for you. We do have a website called SpedTex. After this PowerPoint is done, I will send this out to you and you'll have links in order to access all of these resources. So there's a SpedTex website. It is an information center for all of Texas. And we share information to the family, to educators, to the community at large. We do have several parts to that website. We have the notice of procedural safeguards. That guide is available in 30 different languages. Unfortunately, ASL is just now, I can now say that ASL is available. We were able to collaborate with an outside agency to provide the ASL version of that entire guide. So if you know ASL, please, by all means, check it out. And if you have any concerns or anything, or if it's not working for you, we really would like to hear your feedback on that ASL version of the guide. I was excited to get that availability for anybody who would like to access the information in ASL. The procedural safeguards describes or explains the rights of parents as it relates to the evaluation and development of the AEP for their child, IEP for their child. Also, we have the overview of special education for parents. That's a document that you can see this picture. There's a picture on the slide. It's just a 2-3 page long document that has a quick, brief overview summary of special education. And it is for the parents. It is a document that is available for you to look at and review on your own time. Third up, we have the Parent's Guide to the ARD process. That is also available in ASL. Woohoo! We do have one more guide that we're currently working on making available in ASL, and that is the Dispute Resolution Guide, that process, and that is in the works right now. So we're looking forward to that. So, but right now, we have the Notice of Procedural Safeguards and the Parent's Guide to the ARD process are both available in ASL. Very exciting. There's another website I'd like to highlight here that is Texas Sped Support. This is a website that we developed at TEA in order to be a clearinghouse or a warehouse of all resources dealing with special education. It is not just special education related to deaf and hard of hearing students. It's a general information place. There's webinars, there are self-guides, self-guided learning. So I really, there's a lot of information there and a lot of different topics related to DHH students, students with autism, transition, evaluations. Oh goodness. ARD and IED support, you name it, all of the information that you can think of is on this website. We are continually updating and adding more resources to that website, so check it out. Also, if you have any questions while I am presenting, please, by all means, put that in the chat. You don't have to wait until the end. If you'd like to wait until the end, that's fine as well. Okay. Next slide, please. This is huge. Okay. In the past, we have required 2 evaluations in order for eligibility for students to be diagnosed as or to be labeled as DHH, audiological as well as an audiograph. That has been the case for many years. And I believe it's in the Texas Administration Code here. You can see it right on this slide. So I was a little curious, and so I asked other states, what do you do for eligibility requirements? And most states said that they only require the audiological exam because the audiological evaluation has everything that proves the hearing loss. But when it came to the audiological examination, that evaluation is more related to when you're talking about the situation, the physical situation happening in the ear. So I delved in to see, if you need a medical or it's to check and see if you need surgery or if you need a cochlear implant or want a cochlear implant. And it's a way that, or making sure that your ear pathways are clear for hearing aid use, etc. it really has nothing to do with eligibility. The autological examination doesn't have anything to do with eligibility. So we wrote a new rule and proposed it earlier this year in order to remove the autological evaluation from the eligibility requirements. So we received public comments, and it seems that most people support this removal of the requirement. And the reason being that it is an additional barrier to receiving services within the timeline, or an eligibility within the timeline. So that was it. We decided to adopt that. And if, you know, one of the issues, if you don't have access to an ENT, or maybe you have a doctor who's willing to do it, but they don't have enough time to get you in to see you before your expiration time, we decided it was a good thing to go ahead and remove this requirement in order to expedite eligibility to be able to provide those services on a faster timeline. When we wrote this rule, we wrote the rule, we submitted it, and it was ready for approval, and it has been approved. And that means that starting July 28th, this July 28th, that requirement will be removed. That means that school districts, if they receive a student and have decided, you know, if they are deaf and hard of hearing, they only have to run an audiological evaluation to determine eligibility going forward. School districts can go forward with the audiological evaluation if they would like to have, you know, information regarding use of hearing aid or other assistive technology, but it is not tied to that eligibility criteria anymore. These two evaluations are now separate. I just saw that a question showed up in the chat. Let me see what it says. We're going to go ahead and switch interpreters. Hold on.
Okay, so the question is, can the school audiologist do the otological evaluation, or does it have to go through an independent audiologist? The otological has to be done by a medical doctor or an ENT. It cannot be the school audiologist. They do not have permission to do those evaluations. And then it says the ARD IEP, do you do that before using the school audiologist? Once you receive that, you want to get the audio evaluation prior to setting up the ARD. So yes, you would do that before to determine eligibility. Okay, let's see if there are any further questions. Thank you. All right. So, oh, where'd it go? Okay, there we go. So this is a really big deal for us in deaf education because it truly helps break down some of those barriers that we've seen with eligibility. We have heard so many stories about waiting on an ENT. We are unable to determine eligibility. But this is a critical need. Our student needs services immediately, especially if they're infants. So this will be helpful. You should be able to see a huge improvement in the eligibility process and the provision of services. So I'm excited. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So Texas Deaf Children's Bill of Rights. This is not a separate document. It is tied to the Texas Education Code 29.301-29.315. All of that language is where we are identified as the Texas Children's Bill of Rights. I'll just summarize 4 different areas that we see mentioned in the Bill of Rights. First, wanting educational programs to recognize the unique nature of deafness. Having appropriate, ongoing, fully accessible educational opportunities. being able to choose a variety of language modes and languages, and also having the opportunity to develop proficiency in English and ASL. And I will elaborate on those. And I may jump back and forth between them, but just know that what we're doing impacts every one of those 4 areas. So how we support that Texas Deaf Children's Bill of Rights. Communication mode, the student's communication mode must be respected using and developing the language with proficiency. If the deaf education teacher is assigned to the classroom and the students are signing, and the teacher themselves must have passed what we have called the TASC, Texas Assessment of Sign Communication, the task. They have to pass that and become certified, stating that they have sign language communication proficiency in order to engage with students. Also, interpreters have to be either BEI or RID certified, and that will help with the student in developing their communication styles and their proficiency. You'll also be exposing them to English and ASL. And a variety of communication modes, perhaps C, MMS, whatever. It just depends on the family's preferences. So now with the establishment of the regional day school programs for the deaf, we are celebrating 50 years of the RDSPD concept this year. It's exciting. Another exciting moment. So students have access to staff that are signing. They have access to other students, their peers that are like them. Also having access to role models. Role models can be staff themselves that are deaf, or community members can come into the school and connect with the students. So again, these, I'm just hitting on some of the areas within that Bill of Rights. When we talk about educational programs such as the RDSPD, but more specifically wanting to figure out or determine placement. So the Bill of Rights states that we cannot use one assessment, one single assessment to decide the placement of services. We have to use a variety of assessments, a variety of tools to gather that information and have that conversation during the ARD. And during that discussion, you decide the placement. However, the assessments that we provide have to be given in the communication mode that best fits that student. So we would prefer that we don't have an interpreter come in to interpret the assessment, because you want that direct communication with the student so you don't miss out on information. Instead of it going to a third party, information gets lost that way. But we do know that that's not always possible. It is preferred, though. It is best practice to have someone who can sign and provide that test or assessment. Oh, I see another question. Okay. All right. It's a long question. I'm just reading through it. Just a moment. Bear with me. Okay, that's a very good question. This is more pertaining to deaf teachers who are struggling with providing testing, because the test itself is more of a hearing-centered test, and you're correct in that. So there could be some options where you could have 2 deaf ed teachers, one hearing, one deaf, to help each other, support each other in your instruction and providing that test. Also, we're working with other stakeholders, trying to come up with some ideas as to how we can develop a deaf-centric or deaf-friendly assessments. However, but the funding is just not focused on that work. So we're having to get creative as to how we can modify a hearing-centric exam or test to better suit our deaf students. There are some resources in terms of, the National Deaf Center. They have some resources there about helping with adapting these assessments, but it's more geared towards older students. However, the more we expose people to that, hopefully it will filter down to our younger students and realize that if we need it, it's there. But that's a great question. And I am going to copy that question so I can show the need for this. Thank you for that. Okay, educational programs, again, the RDSPDs should be partnering with ECI, preschool programs, non-public schools, other outside resources they should be partnering with to provide more programming and services. Also, Texas School for the Deaf. And for the older students, those who are getting ready to graduate or they're not ready and or they want to enter the 18 plus program, our regional day school program should be partnering with the 18 plus program or can partner with Texas School for the Deaf in their 18 plus program called Access. You know, we have been providing services through these RDSPDs for 50 years. How can we determine if these programs are successful? We do partner with Region 11, ESC in Fort Worth, and they're working with us to evaluate each of the RDSPDs. There are a total of 53 programs throughout the state. And we are going through a 5-year process with each of the programs to gather artifacts. And we're going in and evaluating their programs and writing a report. That report will have some things that they're doing awesome at, and other areas where we're seeing perhaps improvements could be made in the program. It's not an audit. It's not a got you. It's more of a wanting to show how we can improve our programs and coming up with ideas. We use indicators from this book, the Educational Services Guidelines from 2018 from the National Association of Special Education Directors. They wrote very specifically for deaf and hard of hearing what they should be seeing. So we took a lot of the different indicators, for example, pertaining to babies, what do you do with child find efforts, transition services, technology, certification requirements for teachers, staff, etc., everything. And it's very comprehensive, this report. We write these and submit them to them. And once they see the report, they can develop their own goals as to how they can improve upon their programs. After the 5 years, we would go back again and start the same process all over again and see if improvements have been made. So we have already completed 26 or 27 program reviews have been done. So we are halfway there. And again, it is a 5-year process. We always do about 11 or 12 programs per year. And during the off years, they're working on either developing their goals or gathering information to support their program. Also, do know that, RSPDs, that's one programming decision, but TSD is another program potentially for your child. TEA has an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with Texas School for the Deaf to ensure that there is accountability in reporting, developing annual reports. TSD has developed an annual report on their school performance, and you can see that on their website annually. I think it comes out late fall is when they typically post it. Also, we make sure they report specific information to our Public Education Information Management System, PEIMS. So any questions so far? Okay, not seeing any, so we'll move on to the next slide. I need a drink, just a moment. Okay, so services for deaf and hard of hearing students. I did mention this information probably the last time I presented. I can't remember. I think it's worth mentioning again. So we do have two types of services, very broad categories: direct instruction or indirect or consult instruction. Direct instruction, obviously you're providing direct instruction to the student to help them meet their goals. You have 4 different potential ways to provide direct instruction. Push out, push in, sorry, interpreter error. Push in, pull out, separate class, and separate schools. And I'll elaborate on each of those. So the push in means that the general education teacher is providing the content, the instruction, and the deaf ed teacher can come in and provide differentiation and go into more detail if needed, provide resources and supports. And the deaf education teacher also, consults with the general ed teacher. I'm sorry, the interpreters are switching, that threw me off.
So that's the push in. And so talking about the pull out, that's where the general ed teacher still is providing the instruction. The deaf ed teacher comes into the classroom and provides one-on-one instruction to the student or to a group, depending. You could have multiple students in one class. That'll be either one-on-one or small group instruction. And that would be either where you pull them maybe to the back of the classroom, or actually remove them and go to the deaf ed classroom that is separate from the mainstream gen ed classroom. Also, the deaf ed teacher will need to work that out with the general education teacher as well. Separate classrooms, that's SELF. So it's a self-contained deaf classroom that is not related to general education. It means you provide modified instruction, and it is happening concurrently with the general ed content areas. You're teaching the same content at the same time. Separate school would be something like TSD or a residential school. So those are direct instruction services. When you're talking about indirect construction or instruction services, you're mostly talking about consult, and that's indirect. So those are the 2 types of services that you have. Special education instructor related services will provide services to other people not directly working with the student. So those are the 4 informations. You've got pathways, you've got This is the interpreter I messed up. So you have the consultation, collaboration, managing hearing technology devices, and monitoring. So those are the four possible ways that you can provide indirect services, and they're all pretty self-explanatory. However, when you're talking about monitoring, if the student is deaf and hard of hearing, the only services that they receive are either the instructor is monitoring in the classroom or they're monitoring their assistive technology. Then we need to reconsider switching to 504 services. It's not really appropriate to have this child in special education. If that's the only thing that you're doing is monitoring, then maybe 504 is the better solution. Some students will have interpreters plus monitoring, and in that case, they would still be considered special education. Are there any questions coming in? No, okay. Next slide, please. So the State of Texas Assessment of School Readiness, also known as STAR. So we'll specifically talk about STAR Alt 2. This has been happening for many years that the TEA has proposed a request for waiver from the federal government from the Department of Education on the number of students who are eligible to take the STAR. It seems to be a percentage that we have to stay in that percent. But Texas is so large that we always go above and beyond that number, which means that every year we have to look at waiving everything. Last year, they denied it. We did not receive the waiver, and we were a little bit stuck and had to go back to getting that percentage lower. Because of this, TEA has their assessment division went through and tried to figure out who should be taking the STAR Alt 2, etc. And they developed a document that you can see here. I have it screenshot on this PowerPoint. And I believe it's a 3-page long document, but you can click on the link and check it out for yourself when you receive the PowerPoint after the presentation. So they have revised the eligibility criteria to and emphasize the words most significant cognitive disability. That group is who should be taking the STAR Alt 2. So that group typically, you might not see those often in the classroom. They might be in a self-contained student or in a self-contained special education classroom. We know that those students are not able to or might not be able to use the bathroom on their own or something of that. They cannot care for themselves. So those students are qualified to take the STAR Alt 2. In the past, we have seen, maybe because of some of the delay that they were able to take, because of the delay that some deaf students have, they were able to qualify for the STAR Alt 2 as well. But that really doesn't seem to be an appropriate fit. They must have very significant cognitive disabilities, more than just a language delay. With this list, there's a lot of questions that have come up about, can the student do this? If the answer is yes, then they do not qualify for STAR Alt 2. If the answer is no, then you go along to the next question and you continue on. It is a very detailed explanation of how to evaluate for students to ensure that they are actually qualified for the STAR Alt 2. Last year, because we were trying to get this information out in a hurry, there were several meetings that were happening that were related to this specifically. And people had to review last year who took the STAR Alt 2 in previous years who were no longer able to. And so that caused a lot of last minute work to get all of those IEPs up to date with the current rules. I'm sure you might be wondering about the STAR Alt 2 and what the content is and how it's administered for students who have the most significant cognitive disabilities. Well, the content of the assessment itself is in it's in the TEKS. It's the same, the Texas Skills and Knowledge Information. It's the same content. So the content is the same. However, it is modified. The STAR Alt 2 is heavily modified. How we administer the test is it is given one-on-one. The person who is proctoring the test must know the student, know their needs, know their program and services in detail and have a really good feel on their capability of being able to answer questions in the test. It is a very in-depth process. However, we would like the students to be able to respond in the way that they are able to, in what is explained out, what is listed out in their IEP. The STAR Alt 2 is available for a variety of subjects: language art, ELA, math, science, social studies, grade 3 through 8 as well. It is available, as well as for end of course exams, the EOC. These are also available to all students who qualify. There are two links at the bottom of this slide. The first one is related to a document that is screenshotted here. The second one is more resources that are available on our website regarding STAR Alt 2. How to administer the test, what it's about, etc. Honestly, this is new for us. We are currently gathering all of the information and the data in order to look at this. We know that there are students who took STAR Alt 2 in the past who are now will be transitioning to taking the STAR exam. It's possible we'll see we'll see their numbers drop. But if if there are concerns about a student's graduation ability because of low scores, this is a discussion that you need to have with your art committee. You can meet to discuss that. Okay. Any questions about this so far? Oh, it's very quiet today. So that's it. That's the last slide. I believe the next one is my email information, my contact information. Okay, there you go. There's my email at the bottom of this slide. And even though I have a different last name, I am still using the other email for now. Any other burning questions, maybe something that's not related to what we discussed today? Any questions at all? I see that a question just came into the chat.
Yeah, that question, Emily, I'll read it for you. It says, are the questions on the STAR exam the same as the regular student, or are the questions modified?
So the regular STAR question is a standard. Everybody receives the same questions. STAR Alt 2 is modified. But they should be aligned with the questions that you see on the regular STAR exam.
This is Michaela. Thank you.
Right. It is a little bit hard to get that, to kind of see that. I understand, but yes, that's how it should work.
I want to encourage anyone, if you have a question and you don't want to ask it to the entire group, you can send it to me privately and I'll share the question if that makes you feel more comfortable.
Right, and also if you have any questions after this, you can ask Michaela to get in touch with me and I will be happy to provide an answer. The recording will be available, yes.
That's correct. Yes, you can go back and you can watch this on our Texas Hands and Voices YouTube channel. I'll be following up with everyone via email to give you a copy of Emily's presentation today, as well as a link to our YouTube channel. So yes, you will get a copy of the PowerPoint and you'll also get a copy to today's recording.
Right, and also I did want to talk about the 2 documents that we have available in ASL. Please, please, please send me an email. If you see something that is concerning or whatnot, we would like to continue to improve this process. It has been a long journey. I will also say that one of the documents, we went through a CDI, a certified deaf interpreter. So we had a certified deaf interpreter signing the documents. And the other one was done through a regular ASL English interpreter. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts and concerns because I would like to be able to show to the agency and explain why we would prefer one over the other. If there is a preference, I'm just throwing that out there.
I cannot tell you how excited I am to see that this resource has been developed. I think it's fantastic, and we are going to be sharing it with our community as well so that we can get you some feedback at TEA, Emily. This is just fantastic. If there are any other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. Before you leave today, we are encouraging you to please fill out our survey. Teresa has put a link to our survey in the chat box. That just helps us better serve you with what your needs are and just ensures that we continue to receive funding for these valuable webinars that we're hosting. So we would really appreciate your help in filling out the survey. We'll wait just another minute to see if anyone has any other questions.
Hopefully, we will see you guys next week at the statewide conference for education for the deaf here in Austin. I will be there. So if you're there, by all means, please come up and say hello. I would love to have an opportunity to chat more with you.
Excellent. Yes, please seek everyone out at the conference if you will be there. Emily, as always, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with everyone. We appreciate you taking the time and spreading all of this incredible information and new details with everyone. So valuable to our families and to the professionals who are working with our children. Thank you for giving of yourself and your time and talents, and we certainly appreciate all that you do for our community and our families. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at Texas Hands and Voices or Emily directly, and we'll make sure you get the support you need. Thank you guys so much for joining us today, and we hope that you'll join us at our next webinar, which will be happening in August, which will be discussing some self-advocacy tips and preparing for those IEP and 504 plans from a parent who's also a professional. That can be found on our website at www.txhv.org/webinars. All of that information is there. We'll also put it here in the chat box for you. So if you want to go check that out about next month's webinar, you can do so. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.